So good morning, good evening. Thank you all for joining the College Counseling Office during your free time here. We very much appreciate that. I'm Heather Shows. I'm the Director of College Counseling, a new face for some of you who attended our events in the spring. Let me just share my screen here. There we go. So the format for tonight, I'm going to talk for maybe 15, 20 minutes tops, just to give you a bit of an overview of where we are in the process, what your students have already done, what they're in the midst of doing, what's to come. And then I want to open it up and give all of you a chance to ask questions, because I'm sure there's lots of burning questions with as many pieces of this process as the kids are juggling right now. So we'll definitely save a lot of time for that. Just one note, we are recording this session so that other parents will post it in the parent portal afterwards so the parents who can't attend are able to watch. So just a note about that and a little joke as we get started here about well-roundedness in this process. All right. So as I mentioned, some new faces in the College Counseling Office. So I wanted to take just a minute to let you know and give you the scoop on our new folks. As I mentioned, I'm the new director. Joe Coletta, who was here for 13 years prior, moved on to Knoxville over the summer. He's a little closer to friends and family down there. So he's moved on to a school down there. I've also been in the office now for 14 years. So I'm very excited to take on the director position. That meant that we did need to hire a new college counselor as well. So you can see Harry Bacharach, who's also going to be joining us on this Zoom once he gets finished with the college visits in the college counseling office tonight. But he comes to us from the Brandeis admissions office, where he was for 3 years prior to coming to Governors. He's also worked at Reed College Admissions out in Portland, Oregon, and was in communications at MIT for several years before he headed out there. So we're very happy to have him. He is also coaching cross country this fall. He is very fast. He captained the cross country team at Wheaton College. So if any of your students are running cross country this fall and have talked about the fast new coach, that's him. And he's also a dorm parent in Perkins. He's living in Perkins dorm as well. Next to him is Eric Berard, who's our new college counseling coordinator. Some of you met Danielle Zananeri last spring. She also took a job to be closer. She was commuting over an hour every day to get to us and decided that enough was enough, and she's a little closer to home. So we're very happy that we have Eric, who's a 2021 grad of Governors. So he is back with us, and we are thrilled to have him after he graduated from Dickinson College in the spring. He's also coaching thirds boys soccer, so some of you may have seen him out on the soccer field. But we're thrilled to have both of them. So just to give you a little context, because I know you've probably heard a lot of these acronyms and terms flying around your house these days, but just to give you a little sense of kind of where we are deadline-wise with the college process. A lot of your students, I think we had about 20 or 25 students who actually submitted their first applications this week for the October 15th deadline. That's about the earliest deadline out there. A few colleges have gone a little rogue, but that's about the earliest. There's a number of large Southern public universities that have an October 15th deadline for their early action programs. So a few students have already submitted. Others are working towards November 1, which is a more popular deadline. A lot of early programs are on November 1 or November 15th. So we're getting very close. So a lot of our students that October 15th was primarily an early decision deadline, early action deadline. Early action is non-binding. So it just means your student submits their application early in the fall. They get a decision back from that college in December or January, and then they can kind of just stick that in their back pocket and have it and know that they're going to college and that they've got some options, but they're not committed to attending. Versus early decision, which is that binding commitment. So a number of our students will be doing early decision applications. I think, the vast majority will do early action. A slightly smaller number will do early decision, kind of depends on the schools they're interested in and what timelines they offer. But early decision is that binding commitment. So students say, yes, this is my top choice. If you enroll me, provided that the financial aid offer works out, I will enroll in the college. So a lot of our students are working towards that right now. After that, there is also a second early decision deadline. So if you hear your students say, I'm thinking about this for early decision two, that is a thing that's grown in popularity in the last 5 to 10 years or so. It's just a later deadline. It's still a binding agreement if the students admitted that they will enroll, provided that financial aid package works out. But it gives students a little more time. It's an early January deadline as opposed to November. And it also means that students can apply to their top choice at early decision one. If that doesn't go the way we all hope it does, they've got the option of still doing an early decision two application at another school and getting that early decision advantage. The disadvantage is, of course, you also have to submit all of your regular decision applications because the timing there is simultaneous. Those are all due in early January. But with early decision two, the decision comes out in mid-February versus the regular decision when students hear back from colleges in late March. And then some colleges also offer something called rolling admission, where they will review applications continuously. So if you submit an application, it generally takes about 4 to 6 weeks for students to hear back. So we've had a couple of students apply to rolling admission programs and hear back. I think we have a couple of offers of admission already, which is great and definitely a very psychologically nice thing to have at this point in the year. So what have they already done? Where have they been? At this point, all of our seniors have turned in a copy of their essay and their common application activity list. And that's been reviewed by their counselor, and they've been given feedback and edits on those. The teacher and counselor letters of recommendation are all uploaded and ready to be sent. We've already sent a number of them with those October 15th deadlines, but they are standing by, ready to go as soon as your students submit their first applications. And most of our students, they're getting there. They're updating their college lists in SCORE. That's the platform, the software platform that we use to manage this process. And so we actually just met with the seniors this morning. They were thrilled that we had to move our time to 8:15. You might have heard some grumbling this morning. I told them no one grumbled as much as my daughter, who's a sophomore, who then had to come in with me at 8:15. So I get it. It was not anybody's first choice, but they made it, and we reinforced how important it is for those score lists to be up to date. Right now, they're keeping all of the schools that they plan to apply to in their applying list in SCORE. Because that's the only way that we can see it. We don't have access to their common application unless they bring their computer in and sit down next to us in our office and show it to us. So we don't have access to that outside of that. But we do have access to SCORE. Obviously, we can't see the list they're keeping on their phone or the spreadsheet they're sharing with you at home or any of that. So we ask them to keep those lists in SCORE so that we know what they're doing with their process. So now that they've kind of done that, they are working on supplemental essays. A lot of schools require some additional writing from them for their specific college. So they're working on those supplemental essays for those early applications. We've been reading lots and lots of those, and we reminded them to please keep sending those our way. They are visiting with admissions representatives at Governors. We've had a number of college admissions representatives visit every Tuesday and Thursday night. We host those on campus, so that's what Harry was doing tonight. So he was in the office hosting those. Um, We've had a number of students come and meet with those college reps. It's really helpful because those are often the people reading their applications. So it's great for those students and those folks to meet each other face to face, to get some questions answered, hear a little bit more about what they're looking for in the application review process. So that's been great, and the students have really represented Governors really well in those sessions. And as they are actually pressing submit, I had two students in my office today press the submit button for the first time and get their first applications in, which is really exciting. It is pretty fun to watch in the common application. If you happen to be with your student when they hit submit, look over their shoulder because it's kind of fun. And then they move those schools, once they press submit, they move those schools over to the applied list in SCORE. And we emphasize this again with them this morning. That's the only way that we know that they've actually pressed the submit button and sent in their application. Because again, we don't have access to their Common App to know that, so they have to let us know through SCORE. Then we get an email, and that activates our end, and then we will send their transcripts, their recommendation letters, the school profile, all of that good stuff. We send in one electronic bundle to each school. So as soon as they move that college over, we'll submit all of their materials on or before the deadline for that college. That's where we've been. That's what's happening. What comes next? So after they submit, one of my students was so excited, he pressed the submit button today and he immediately went to his email to see that if he had gotten his portal access. But it's not quite that quick. But after students submit their application, each college, it'll take about 24 to 48 hours, but they'll get an email that says, "Thank you so much for applying. We received your application, and here are the instructions for setting up your account on our portal." All of them have an online portal where students will set up that account, and that way they can track if their materials have been received, that their application is complete. If they're applying for financial aid, they can also track that information there as well. It might be on the same page and they might get a link to a separate page for financial aid, but they can see that all that documentation has been received as well. They're also able to upload additional information there. So a number of our students might have a portfolio or interview or a video that they've created, something like that, that they could upload. We've also recommended that our students who are not sending test scores to all colleges, but just picking and choosing to send them to a few, that they upload their testing through those portals as well. They can just self-report, they can send a screenshot of their testing. That way they can be sure that they are in charge of the scores getting to the exact colleges that they want them to, as opposed to listing those scores in the common application, where if they don't forget to delete them before they submit, they might accidentally go to a college when they don't mean for them to have scores. So the easiest way is to just upload them in those portals. Those portals are also going to be where colleges actually post their eventual decision. So those are really important for the students to create their account, double check that everything's complete, know how to access those portals, because that's where those decisions will eventually be posted. Some colleges also require one additional step after students submit their application. They require a self-reported transcript. And this STARS that we mentioned here is a website that a number of colleges will use. Mostly larger public universities, Penn State, Clemson, NYU is also on there. There's a handful of private schools too. But they require your students to actually hand enter all the courses they've taken in high school and all the grades they've received. Now you might be asking, but they still charged me $80 for my child to apply to this school, even though they had to do all the work. And that is true. I don't know why they still charge those exorbitant fees, but yet your students actually entering all this information. But there we go. We walked through. We had a meeting with the seniors 2 weeks ago. We walked them through this system. The good news is they did add a feature this year where students can actually upload a copy of their transcript directly into this STARS website, and their AI will scan it and put it into the form so that students then just have to check it and correct any mistakes. And it's pretty good. It does a pretty good job. There's a handful of things that sometimes if a class is only meets for one semester, sometimes it gets confused about whether it should be in fall or spring, and students have to tweak that. But for the most part, it's pretty good, and it alleviates the need for them to enter every single class and every single grade. So they all have unofficial copies of their governor's transcripts, as well as transcripts from any prior high school. So they all have the information they need to complete that. And then once we get past November, our next step will be going over those applying lists and score and sitting down with our students to make sure they have a good, solid plan for regular decision, that they have at least 2 to 3, ideally 3 or 4 likely colleges on their list that have almost always taken students with similar academic profiles in the past, to ensure that they have some choices at the end of this process. That's really, we hope that they have lots and lots of choices from all selectivity ranges, but we want to make sure that they have at least 2 to 3 choices that they feel good about, that they're happy with, that they could definitely see themselves attending and feel are a good fit. So we're going to be going over those lists, meeting with students who might need to add a few things to that list, and making sure that those are well balanced as we head into the regular decision process in January. So how can families help? Nothing magical here. This process is hard. Colleges make it harder every year. So be their hype squad, tell them they're doing a great job, because they really are. They're managing a lot, a lot. They're juggling some of their hardest coursework. They're juggling significant leadership positions on campus. They're writing all of these essays. colleges really ask a lot of them, particularly since the pandemic with the rise in applications, as so many schools went test optional, they've kind of added more and more so that they can get a sense of all of these students in their applicant pool and how to differentiate between them. So these guys are managing it really well. They have been very on top of the ball. So remind them, be their hype squad. They need it. I think they I don't think they feel like we're always seeing all the effort they're putting in. So hype them up. Listen, there's a lot of venting and a lot of complaining and all of that needs to happen too, so that they can push past that and be productive. So listen without solutions if at all possible. I know how hard that is. But if you can withhold judgment solutions, often they will just talk themselves right into doing what you thought they should probably be doing from the start. So listening, giving them that space. Remember too, I have to remind myself this all the time now that I have a high school student. You're their safe place. They can complain, they can let it all out. Does not necessarily mean that life is quite as miserable as they make it sound. But you can at least feel good that they feel comfortable letting that out, and then usually they turn right back around with a smile and get right back to it once they're back on campus. Um, we work hard with them to keep the process in perspective. There's no one magical fit for each student. They all have lots of colleges where they could really thrive. So much of it is just knowing that at the end of this, they're going to be okay. They're going to have some great choices. They're going to make the best of it when they go to school. What matters is what they do once they're there, getting involved, getting connections, building those relationships with their peers, with their faculty, exploring their interests, and they can do that at a variety of places. And we're definitely going to be working with them to make sure they have that variety to choose from. And please contact us anytime with concerns. I've definitely said this to many parents throughout this process. Is sometimes parents are a little nervous about asking a lot of questions of their student, or overwhelming them or freaking them out during this really busy time. If you have concerns, if you're not sure if things are on track, or if something is important, please reach out. That's what we're here for, and we're very happy to help and address those. So please do that anytime. We might see you on campus this weekend. If you're local, we're always happy to get together, or a little farther away, we're happy to Zoom or do a phone call. So please just reach out and let us know how we can help. And finally, just a couple of notes about financial aid and scholarships. For those of you applying for need-based financial aid, those applications are due right around the same time as the student's application for admission. So that means the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. That's going to be every college in the country requires that one. And a growing number require the CSS profile. That's the College Board's application for financial aid. That's historically been used by private schools, but a number of public schools have actually added it as well this year. So double check those requirements. Those will be due right around the same time your student applies. It's not quite as hard and fast a deadline, but the important thing is to get it in right around then, so that the financial aid office has plenty of time to put together a financial aid package, and that your student will get that at the same time as their admission offer. That's really the key there. And just double check those portals again, like we said with admissions. Double check those portals, because sometimes there are institutional forms, or sometimes they want to get an extra copy of your W-2 or of last year's tax forms or things. So just double check and make sure that there's nothing additional that they need. If you have questions or want to do a deep dive, the College Money Method Resource Center that Paul Martin with College Money Method has put together for us is fantastic. There's recordings of his sessions from last year, and he'll be updating those as he conducts more with us this year. We've got one about borrowing and taking out loans coming up in December. So all of those will be available in the Resource Center, as well as lots and lots of helpful links, charts, all kinds of resources in there. So you've got that password there. We'll be sharing these slides so that you'll have that link as well. There's also some information about merit scholarships in that Resource Center as well. He's got a little bit of information about that. The largest source, not course, I'm looking at this slide, is from the colleges themselves. They are definitely the largest source of merit scholarships. That's typically where students will see the biggest sums. But there are a couple of national sites that we've recommended here. GoingMerry.com and scholarships.com are two of the biggest. And those have just hundreds of thousands of scholarship listings. So it's a little needle in a haystack, but if your students are willing to put in a little time, they can create a profile on those sites. They can actually upload their transcript and essay and some information about themselves. And those sites will then help match them with appropriate scholarships. If they're a student from Vermont, the site will go out and find anything relevant that requires that a student be from Vermont. Or if they're a fantastic knitter, there'll be a young knitting scholarship or something that they'll find for them. So, and they can then apply for the scholarship through that website. So if they've got a little time, those can be super helpful. And they should also check their local high school guidance office websites. A lot of local public schools will maintain lists of local scholarships, and sometimes that's the best way to see, is there something for students from Rowley, or is there something for students from Portsmouth, New Hampshire? What's available out there? Since we're a boarding school, a lot of times those scholarship organizations don't include us on their notification list because they know they don't know if we have students from their town. So sometimes going straight to the town itself is the best way to find out about those. And they'll typically start posting those around January or February of senior year. So this is, you can do a little legwork now, but this is even a little bit early for those to start looking for those. So that's a little bit about where we've been and where we are and where we're going. I see Harry on there. Harry, you want to say hello and introduce yourself now that you're able to pop up?
Sure. Thanks, Heather. Hi, everybody. My name is Harry Backrack. I started at Governor's a few months ago. Excited to work with some of your students. I know I see a few familiar names on the screen here. Spent the last several years in college admissions and looking forward to going through the college process with everybody.
All right. I apologize. I can't find the little thing to turn off my screen sharing, so I will work on that here. But I think now what we would love to do, if I can, don't know why. Let's see. There we go. Okay, am I still sharing? Yes, okay. I'm not getting the little tab that usually allows me to stop sharing. All right, I apologize. All right, I think we're just going to have to take questions, and I apologize that I cannot turn this off. But if you'd like to post questions in the chat, you're welcome to. If you'd like to just unmute, there's not that many of us in here. You are welcome to unmute and jump in with any questions. You guys have got this. No burning questions.
I actually have a question.
Yes.
I know it's best to not put pressure on our seniors who are already feeling the pressure from the whole process. While it's been decades since I went through it, I know how stressful it can be. But do you recommend that we review everything that might be in the Common App before we let our child just go forward with submitting things?
It's a good question. We don't require our students to meet with us to look over the Common App, but we do strongly encourage it. So we've looked over many, many of them. However, we may not always be able to catch a parent's job or a sibling name or something, we kind of
Right.
trust that they've got that correct. So I certainly don't think it's a bad idea if your student's willing to sit down with you and walk through that Common App and just double check, especially the family situation, the family information page, sibling information, parents' jobs, and schools and all of that. I think that can be helpful for sure. We do a pretty thorough job. We've reviewed their activity lists. You would not believe how many of them forget that they're dorm proctors. That's always what they leave out in there.
Yes.
But we try to catch all those things, and we double check with the list that they've given us prior and make sure those are complete. But again, not a bad idea to have an eye on that as well.
Right, because I've found that, maybe some things are not worthy of being on the application, but students tend to forget over the years what awards they may have won or accomplishments or achievements that just aren't top of mind. So thank you. I will do that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. What else? We did have a question about whether or not STARS was something the students are aware of. I think they might be too aware of it at this point, but thanks, Harry, for answering that in the chat. But we did actually have an all-class meeting with them 2 weeks ago where we went over and walked them through STARS, and they're all very on top of it now. They've all been they're very excited to get in there and fill it out and want to get it in right away. So yes, I think they're very much on top of it. What other questions are out there? We did I'll give you all the same timeline information we gave them this morning. I think yes, we will definitely share this slide deck. There was a question about sharing this, which we will. We'll also post a recording in the parent portal. But we did talk through with them a little bit because of course they're teenagers and they're not thinking past tomorrow. But we kind of reminded them today is October 16th. So we're about a little bit more than 2 weeks away from November 1. They've got this nice long weekend to get lots of work done. Some of them are doing visits. They're working on supplemental essays. When they get back, we're going to be about 10 days out from November 1. So things are going to feel rushed and it's gonna feel like it's getting closer, which it is. So we've asked them to set up appointments with their college counselor ahead of time. Plan ahead. Don't just email us the night before and say, "Are you free tomorrow?" Because likely we will not be. We'll make it work, but it gets stressful. So we want them to plan ahead a little bit, particularly this year. November 1 falls on a Saturday, and so a lot of them are going to have games. The 31st, Halloween is on a Friday, so I imagine some of them will be celebrating Halloween. They'll have games on Saturday, and then of course Sunday is Special Olympics, so a lot of them will also be on campus Saturday for setup and getting that ready. So that's going to be a really busy time. So we've encouraged them to try to get things ready at least a few days in advance so that they can submit those applications and just have that, off their backs for that really busy weekend. It is a no homework weekend, which is nice. So hopefully that will, if they are working at the last minute, they at least won't be competing with homework for that weekend. But working ahead of time, particularly this year because of the way those dates fall, I think is going to be key for them. Then we'll all cross our fingers that maybe we get a sleep in or a head holiday on that Monday after a Special Olympics like we do sometimes. Harry, anything else that we missed?
I think you've covered it, Heather.
All right. Well, I hope you all know where to find us by now. You've probably gotten lots of emails from your child's college counselor. So please reach out. Let us know if you have questions, if you want to talk anything through, get together, have a Zoom. We're more than happy to do that. We do have a session tomorrow morning at 9:15. That's mostly aimed at younger parents. So please don't feel like you need to rush to campus for that. It's really more for our 9th and 10th and 11th grade parents. The 11th graders we're actually starting with next week, believe it or not. But the 9th and 10th graders have a little bit more time. So it's a little bit more about what they can be doing. So certainly don't need to rush in for that, but we will be around. Is there a question? All right. Well, we will let you all have your evening or your morning back. We really appreciate you taking time to be with us tonight. Your kids are doing great. They're managing this so well, and it's a lot that we're asking of them, and they are coming through. We're really proud of them. So thank you so much for being here with us, and please stay in touch. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you so
very
much.
Thank you.
you.